Thank you very much, Andy, for the support, and welcome everyone to another Reps call. Hello to Paul, Tim, Tunde, Andy, Liv, Lydia, and Julie, and everyone who might be watching us on Airmo or watching us later on YouTube. And welcome and thank you very much to Ruth for being here. Ruth is a part of the MDN team. So let me see if everyone else is in the Etherpad. Please put your name in the Etherpad, register yourself in the community portal. And if you have any shout outs for someone who you think did a very good job or helped you out in any way, please put the name in the Etherpad and I will be happy to read them for you. So without further ado, we can start. So as you know, we have put a new activity in the community portal and is to help people become contributors and support MDN. We put both a link and a description and links from how people can contribute by themselves, but we also put events agenda, how you can contribute with your community. So we made some example of various events. One event is to help solve issues using GitHub, and the other one is how you can support learners. So you can see both of them in the community portal. And if you have any questions about the cool work, please reach out to us. So the Taiwan community already tested, and I think also in the Indonesia community, they both tested this event. So, but if you have any further feedback and suggestion on how to modify it, please let us know. We will be very happy to hear it. So this is the introduction. So now I will pass the word to Ruth.
Thank you very much. Hi, everybody. My name is Ruth. I work on the MDN team at Mozilla. What I'll do is I'll do a quick introduction to MDN. I'm sure that most of our audience is familiar with it, but it's probably best just to start from the beginning. MDN is one of probably the biggest set of reference materials for web coding. So we reference HTML, CSS, and JavaScript primarily, as well as a few other bits. And there's also a learn area so that anybody who's coming to learn these technologies can go through our learn area. It's quite a big site. I've got some statistics. It has about 17 million users worldwide. And we've probably got about 13,000 pages. So it is quite a lot to keep everything up to date. And that's one of the things that we try really hard to do, because code specifications change quite regularly and are updated and functionality is added to the web platform. We like to reflect that on MDN as soon as we possibly can and in the best way possible. So there is a lot to do and there's a lot of things to keep up to date. It's open source. It's an open source website. About this time last year, we changed it from being a wiki, which was a website that you could go in and edit in the actual website itself, to a static site, which is now hosted on GitHub. So if you are familiar with GitHub and you have a GitHub account, you can just go to mdn/content. That's the repository. And that's where our English language content is held. So you can poke around the repository if you're familiar with that. There's a guide on the README to how to help contribute, how to get started, how to set it up, things like that. So that's all there. We also have a translated content repository as well, which is a separate one, where we have, I think, 7 languages. I wanted to list them all, and I'm going through all the labels in my head. So Brazilian Portuguese, French, 2 Chinese, there's Korean, I'm missing a couple and someone's going to shout at me. But if you are wanting to contribute to that as well, that's also something that would be really helpful. That each language has a different community around it, and it's a lot for them to translate all the updates that we're doing and make sure all the pages are right. So there's just a lot going on all the time. We also have a Learn forum on, well, I do this thing where I get Discord and Discourse modeled up all the time. We have a Learn forum on Discourse where anybody who's using MDN to learn how to write HTML or CSS or JavaScript can ask questions. And it's an open forum. And if you're familiar with these web technologies and you want to help our learners, that's a really good way to contribute as well. We have on the MDN content repository quite a lot of open issues. So if you do go on the website on the MDN and you notice that there's maybe an error in some code, or one of the sentences doesn't make sense, or you want to change it, you as a user can submit an issue to us, and then we can figure out and fix it. So we can go in and update the pages as and when. But it does mean that there is quite a few open issues. So helping to close them, there's a label for these issues. If you're familiar with GitHub, you can go to the repository, look at issues, and there is a good first issue label. There's also different content labels. So you have, if you think that you're really good at HTML, you can go to the content HTML label, and there'll be a bunch of issues which is just related to that kind of content. So that's a really good way to help us, because we have quite a lot of those. I'm just checking to make sure there's nothing else I want to say. Yeah. I think that's by and large the most of it. I'm happy to answer any questions if anybody's got them. Francesca just kindly put a link in the chat here, which is how to contribute, or one of the contribution pages.
I put a link in the chat of the various languages in which MDN is being localized in.
Thank you.
Apart from the one Ruth mentioned, there is also Japanese and French, I think, and Russian. I think you mentioned the other one.
Thank you. Yeah, it's I get all the notifications and they all kind of merge together for me. So thank you very much. I appreciate that.
Does anyone have any question? Paul, go ahead.
Quick question. I mean, how many people at the moment from the community are working on MDN? Is there a lot of people? Is it relatively small?
We're very small on the Mozilla team. We do have core contributors, so people from other companies that help us to contribute. So Google pays somebody to help write for MDN, as like Microsoft are also involved, as a Facebook. The W3C, we've got some dedicated people from there, and recently Open Web Docs, one of the big parts of that, which spun out of MDN, is to help keep the pages up to date. So they've got 4 employees that work on MDN pretty much full time at the moment, ever since the move to GitHub. So yeah, we do have I'd say sort of 10 to 12 constant contributors, including us. And then members of the community tend to get involved in waves, which is fine. So they'll come along for like a couple of weeks, do some updates and say they've helped, and then move on. But it's kind of good because it's quite an important resource, at least I think so, because it helps so many people. And I think it's helpful for people to come and help contribute as well, because it teaches them a little bit more about open source, even if they're familiar with things like GitHub. I mean, I've been here for 7 or 8 months now, and I was already writing for MDN when it was on Wiki, but it's been a big learning experience of dealing with open source and communities ever since we moved it, because, you know, it's quite a big site with lots of people who are invested.
No, I've used it myself several times. It's incredibly useful. Yeah, you know, if you're trying to win win an argument, but if you're trying to convince somebody of something, just being able to spin out an MDN link and say, look, you know, if you don't believe me, here's the one truth, read that.
Yeah,
it comes in very handy.
It's kind of funny you should say that, because I've been down quite a few rabbit holes myself trying to find the one source of truth for a lot of the things that we document, just to make sure it's accurate. But yeah, it's kind of funny. I was saying just yesterday how I still use MDN when I'm writing for MDN, which is a really meta thing to do. But it is just, it's one of those constants through a web developer's career, isn't it? So yeah.
I have a question about the localization. I see a few teams localize the articles on MDN, like the French, but the interface is still in English. UI.
Yes, so this
And I
this
don't
is
understand why it's chosen to freeze all the locales who are not updating the articles but has a translated interface. And now I'm looking to localize articles but not the UI.
so since the change in system, this is kind of how it works technically. And I don't think there's any plans to change that. There were some big decisions made this time last year about which locales to keep and which ones to not keep based on some statistics we had in analytics. My predecessor, Chris Mills, wrote a really good blog post about that. I will try and find it for you because I think it's really good at understanding some of the decisions that were made around localization. I'm going to do that whilst you keep talking. And I'll put a link in the chat.
I wanted to ask if there is anyone else who have a question. For example, if you're thinking of holding an event, I know, for example, that the Philippines community already has an event up in the portal, and I think the Taiwanese community have regular meetings to translate MDN in their community space. Hi, Vishal. And I think also Lydia from the Indonesia community had time to have a look at the activity before we posted. So if anyone has any question about how to carry out the activity or something you have difficulty understanding, we also put a link to a matrix room. So the MDN matrix room. So for sure, if you have question, also put your question there. Hello, Robbie. Hello, Vishal.
Hello.
So are there any questions? No? Okay, while you think up some more questions, what I want to say is, so right now we have spread the word in the community about MDN, about the new activity, but we are working to prepare a video with MDN team and some volunteers on MDN. And once that is ready, we will do a bigger push where we send also email to our Mozillans mailing list. So we might see a lot more people coming over. So if some of you is knowledgeable about MDN, I also want to pop in the matrix room. That would be good in case there are some more people coming over to ask questions. So we will try to involve as many people as possible. And in the next weeks, if any of you want to organize an event with your community and you need any resource, you need any information, please get in touch with me. I will be very happy to help. Just send me an email as usual, and I will answer it. Are there any other questions? I don't see any other questions, so I will just have a look at the Etherpad, and I see there is a shout out. Big shout out to Lydia for her work looking into new activities. So thank you very much, Lydia.
Oh, you're welcome. Actually, I have questions regarding the MDN as well. Yes, I'm wondering about the localization to another language, because usually for non-technical, usually they are into localization, and then I haven't seen my language, local language there, like how that's supposed to be worked. Yeah.
Again, the links that I just put into the chat, one of them specifically outlines the decisions behind the localization languages that we took and how we were not, let me have a look. We have kept some locales which haven't been unfrozen for people to translate because there's no community behind them. We expect at least 3 or 4 people from any community to be dedicated. Translating the content is actually a great deal of work, and I base that just on the amount of pull requests that come through on that repository. It's quite a lot more than actually content. So there are a couple of languages which we would consider to unfreeze. I think Spanish was one of them. I'm sort of looking at the list from the blog post. I think that was probably one of the main ones we had interest in. One of the issues, of course, we have now is those languages were frozen this time last year, and that you would have to take the state of how MDN was for that language from last year and make all the updates from this past year as well. So that's just a sort of tiny warning, but if people are interested in one of the languages on that list that we don't translate in that blog post, yeah, see, we've got more Spanish influence. The best thing to do is to get in touch, and you can do that via the Matrix Room, or you can raise an issue on content. My GitHub username is Rumira, and you'll find me saying things on GitHub quite a lot. So if you are interested in translating content, and I'm just warning it's quite a lot of work, I'm not putting you off at all, and just here for expectations, then just mention me. You can mention me in the Matrix Room or on GitHub, and I'll put you in touch with a couple of other people that have been interested, because if there is enough people, I don't have a problem unfreezing one of the locales that we do actually have, which isn't unfrozen.
Yeah, I see you had a question about the Sane community in Mexico. They asked me when it will be open up for Spanish. So I think you answered that question, but yeah.
Yeah. I'm wondering if Lydia had a specific language that they were considering.
Indonesian language.
Okay.
Yeah.
I'm not sure if that's one of the locales we kept.
It's not. Yeah. Because like I'm non-technical, and usually like I more into like doing some localization on another like project on Mozilla. So yeah, that's my first, I'm looking forward to this contribution. Also, like I've been talk with some community here, like showing them like the label 10 minutes, 30 minutes issues, but they have like some difficulties, like even like to tackle that, some issues like how you would suggest like us to, if we make event to like helping them to solve them, like what's the best way to do that?
So what's the best way to resolve?
No, I mean because like the suggestion from the community portal page, like we can help to solve some issues from the GitHub, right? So when I show this kind of activities to some communities, they still like having some difficulties to do that. I think it's more into like the basic understanding, like what is the minimum knowledge they have to have, or should I send out some like a survey first before they can attend the event, kind of thing.
Hi Lydia, if you look at the description of the event, we put some steps before the events where we advise that you kind of send out a doodle just to understand what kind of knowledge, like.
Yeah, but yeah, that's the thing that I don't really like to know, like, oh, what is like inside the doodles, like what is the minimum, like is it like, some people say like, oh, I can do HTML and CSS, some kind of thing, but what is the minimum kind of thing? Like I'm not really sure how to measure that. If we make like a like an event of 10 people kind of thing.
In my opinion, Lydia, is MDN not really suitable for non-technical people for translate, localize. That's why all the locales are cut off, because they want to have the articles translated, and a lot of articles are not easy to translate if you're not familiar with the stuff. So
No,
the
it
decision is
wasn't like
made to not support other locales than a few, and that's it.
I think they were more asking about the kind of events that we suggest in the community portal. I think, so my advice will be put people in groups, not by themselves, and make sure that there is at least one of the most technical people in each of these groups so that they can help each other. And also the MDN team added a good first issue tag. So I would choose those kind of things. But yes, this is more a technical kind of contribution that we suggest people who are who already have some knowledge about it. And I think people who don't have some knowledge, they can come and they can kind of learn from the other people, but you still will need to have like a few people who are knowledgeable to carry out this event. Yes.
Yeah, I agree with that. I'm sorry that we don't really have a benchmark for how technical you need to be, but I do think, because especially now we're working on GitHub as well, there is a sort of base level of having some experience with it before. Maybe we should make that more clear on the description.
Yeah, I will add a bit more. I think we already have some of those language, but I will underline more if that is needed. But yeah,
I
that's
think I just like wondering like if the MDN team can like add some like sample issues kind of thing, that so they can get used to it. Like I'm not really sure about like, is there like any environmental stuff that they have to understand before as well? So yeah.
Maybe we could, there is some prerequisites on the contribution guidelines, and there is a guide to how to get set up on GitHub, and there's a GitHub for Beginners guide as well. So that might be helpful. It's quite, maybe the thing to do is look through some of the issues that we've closed as a good example of what was changed. Like
Okay.
a small one, so that you can see how
that works.
yeah. Maybe have a look at that tomorrow when I'm back.
That's a good idea, actually.
One of the things we advise the person who carry out the event is to take one old issue that was solved so they can give it as an example, but we can actually put an example there that people can use, so they can use
yeah,
that.
that's a great idea. Thank you very much.
So we are nearly 2 minutes to the end of the course, so I just want to quickly go through a couple of things. So thank you very, very much, Ruth, for coming. If you need to drop off, feel free, and thank you very much for coming, really.
Thank you. I've got 2 minutes until my next one.
And so, does any of you have any question about the campaign we are running? So most of you should have received an email by now on how to receive your t-shirt. So we also have a matrix room for the campaign. So feel free to put any questions in there. If you don't find your country as a place to be sent to, please send an email to me or Costantina, and we will make arrangement and see how it's possible for us to send it to you. Great. Let me see if there are any question on the Etherpad or in the matrix room. I don't see any question. Not in the matrix room. Okay, so I think that's everything, everyone. Thank you very much for coming. Thank you much for the advice and the feedback and the discussion and everything. And if you have any further question, there is the MDN matrix room, or feel free to send them to me. If I have the answer, I will answer to you. If not, I will try to find out. And have a good day, evening, morning, everyone.
Great. Thanks very much.
Bye.
Take care,
Thank you
everyone.
very much, everybody.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.